Raiders suck.
This is Out High Bear Nation.
All right, welcome to another edition of Out of High Bear Nation. I am your host, Ace, with my boy Joey and Michael. How are you guys today?
Doing good, man. How are you doing?
Not bad, man. I got some Don in my cup. I got a little water bottle to counteract that. We have a lot of Bears news that broke. Well, not really broke, but a lot of Bears topics that have come out over the last couple of weeks. I know we didn't do a show last week. I was in Vegas for some work stuff, but we had the whole Justin Fields on the St. Brown podcast. Caleb Williams spoke today. Ryan Poles spoke yesterday. It's just been a lot of talk about that number one overall pick. What's the quarterback position going to look like, And now we finally get to sit down together, have our therapy session, and get out our thoughts on really the only thing that's consumed the NFL over the last month and a half, right? Is this, what are the Bears going to do? So, I mean, I know we talked a little bit before the show kicked off about where we wanted to start. So you guys want to just jump right into Caleb Williams because he spoke today, or you want to talk about Justin Fields? What you guys interested in talking about?
Yeah, let's. I think the most recent news we got today was out of Caleb Williams, where there was a lot of rumors about an article, a tweet, that he liked, saying that the Bears should not draft him, and he liked the tweet, and a lot of people kind of drew up the conclusion that Caleb did not want to play in Chicago. So he kind of cleared that up today, saying he didn't want to dictate his career and which team he goes to. And, pretty much said if it's the Bears at number one, he's going to be excited. And if that pick gets traded and another team takes him, he'll be excited. And he did also specifically say that the Bears had nice pieces and talent on that team and anyone would be excited to join them. So I think he kind of, put those rumors to rest at least.
Yeah, he ended up coming out. An article on ESPN dropped about an interview that he did, basically stating that, if I get drafted by the Bears, I'll be excited. If the pick gets traded and I get drafted somewhere else, I'll be just as excited. Speaking about Chicago, they have a talented team, talented offense and defense. For anyone in this situation, I think they'd be excited. So that pretty much puts the narrative that Caleb doesn't want to play for Chicago to bed at this point. That was a huge thing, about 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, where it looked like his camp came out and said that he really didn't want to go to the Bears because obviously the history of Chicago quarterbacks isn't very good, and he didn't want to be one of the many to fall. I think with the quarterback position for the Bears, it's really just the fact that they always seem to pick the wrong guy. They have the opportunity to pick whoever they want at times, like when they picked Mitch over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, because they just needed, we talked about this in the pre-show, they just needed to jump up one spot to get Mitch because Mitch was so coveted by everybody else. Like, I think the Bears, because they haven't had it right, that they overthink it and they end up shooting themselves in the foot and really bidding against themselves. That's kind of a trend that I've noticed, even in free agency at times, where the Bears end up, we got to make sure that we get this guy at all costs, and teams kind of pin them against themselves to get more out of them. I think those quotes are really well thought out by Caleb. I think that he came out, he knew what he needed to say. There was a lot of criticism about his character leading up until, the draft. And I think that with these comments, Caleb is basically saying, I'm just here to play for whatever team I'm blessed to go to, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and that those rumors about the camp, that I can't remember what's that guy's name that came out. He said that on his I think it's on ESPN or something. Didn't he like come out and say it, and then he retracted it the next day because
Colin Cowherd, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
he came out and kind of like threw that out there, and Caleb's camp came back and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we never said that." So he had to kind of quickly retract those comments like that his very next show on the very next day. So I agree. I think, especially after Caleb's comments today, I don't think anyone should be questioning that a whole lot.
Yeah, our boy Foster in the chat talking about Colin Cowherd's comments. But I agree. Caleb, you had a lot of people looked for small things to nitpick about him because they didn't want Justin to be traded, right? At first it was the nail polish, then it was he's got a bad attitude, then he's crying in the stands with his parents, and it all seemed kind of premeditated. But ultimately, I think that you look at a guy in Caleb Williams, and I know a lot of these guys all want to win, right? But I feel like he has this win at all cost mentality. And I kind of, all right, so I've wanted Justin to stay on the Bears this entire time. We've talked about this in our group chats. I've talked about it on this show. However, I do think that with the way things have played out the last 2 weeks with Justin on the podcast with the St. Browns, with what Ryan Poles has said to the media, it looks more and more likely that they're going to take Caleb Williams number 1 overall, and that they're going to move on from Justin. We have a topic of Justin is going to be the next topic we talk about. So, I mean, we could transition right to that. But to kind of put a bow on Caleb Williams, I think that, you look at a guy who played really well in college. Anytime you get a first-year quarterback, most of the time you take a step backwards as a franchise. Not necessarily a giant step backwards, but you're not automatically expected to take that huge leap, and maybe this is a scenario where he comes in, they're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. I hate giving comparisons like that because I feel like you're ultimately setting this guy up to fail if he's not Patrick Mahomes. I just want them to get this right. If they take Caleb, I want Caleb to come in and be the guy that when we go to Lambeau or we go to Minnesota or we're playing in Detroit, we look and say, okay, we got a fair chance to win this game. This is going to be a competitive game because we have that guy at quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't think Bears fans, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say I speak on behalf of all Bears fans, but I would like to think that most Bears fans don't expect Caleb to come in and be Patrick Mahomes. I've said before, like, even if he's as good as like a Justin Herbert, or even if people say he's just going to be another Justin Fields. For argument's sake, let's even just say that. Just say he is as good as Justin Fields. Like, you're still resetting that quarterback contract. Like, if you keep Justin Fields, you have to pick up his 5th-year option at like $25.6 million. Regardless how much you like or dislike Justin Fields, he has not done enough, whether it's his fault or not, to prove to us that he's worth $25.6 million.
Right.
So even if you're going to use the argument he's going to be another Justin Fields, well, then you're getting the same guy, but a whole lot cheaper.
You know what? And that's a great point, because I never really thought of it like that. let's say he is Justin, and that's the situation that you find yourself in. He comes in, and even if he's Justin now in the first year, you're automatically looking at a scenario like you said where you have a cheap quarterback. Now, this whole time, my whole argument with this has been the draft compensation you can get for this pick. I know it's hard to pass up on a generational quarterback, right? But how many generational quarterbacks can there be? Patrick Mahomes is already playing in the NFL. A generation, I get it. Maybe Caleb is one of those guys, a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, those types of quarterbacks that find themselves in the later rounds of the playoffs every year. Maybe he is one of those guys. But to me, it's still that draft compensation would be so insane to me. And I'm not sure if you guys looked at the Peter King article that he dropped about the Bears and everything, and about this pick and what he thought the Bears ultimately could get for this pick. And I think I'm trying to find it right now. He came out and said that there was he doesn't know anything is the first thing that he said. He has no inside knowledge of anything. But that he thought it was possible that the wind was blowing in the direction of keeping Justin Fields, right? And then he said, the thought is the Bears could trade back. Okay, so I got it right here. Suppose Ryan Poles traded back the top pick down one spot to Washington, which would take Caleb Williams. You'd get the second pick, a second-round pick, and a 2025 first-round pick in return. Then suppose that Poles traded the second pick to Atlanta at 8. The Falcons would give up. The Falcons picked one of the other quarterbacks, obviously, and the Bears would get the 8th pick, Atlanta's second-round pick, and a first and second-round pick next season. So then you would look at a situation where you have 7 picks in the first round. For moving down 7 picks in the first round, the Bears could end up with 9 picks in the first 2 rounds of the next 2 drafts. Like, that's insane to think about. 3 first-round picks next year because you'd have yours, and then you'd have Washington and Atlanta. You would have, 3 second-round picks this year or next year? No, 2, because you'd have yours and Atlanta because you would take Washington second this year is basically what they're saying. Like, that kind of compensation, man, to me is just so hard to pass up because you're looking at 9 guys that are all going to be on rookie deals or 1-year contracts as opposed to paying a quarterback. I know we've all discussed this topic to nauseum at this point, but that's just the type of stuff that I think it makes it so difficult to just be like, yeah, we're taking Caleb right away. And I think that's why ultimately there is so much back and forth on what these guys are going to do because of that possibility of all that compensation back.
Yeah. I'm going to let Big Sexy comment on this one.
Joey, what you thinking?
Honestly, my mind's just all over the place. Like, I mean, I've been, all in on Justin Fields since the get-go, I fought for him. Like, a lot of us, we talked about it back and forth, and I was one of the biggest people against Caleb Williams. There's a lot that I didn't like. No, I'm not gonna say a lot. I'm sorry. There's a few things that stood out to me that are just red flag. But seeing more on him, watching more film, and like me personally, I still think that trading is the best option. But again, like you hit the nail on the head. How can you pass up on on Caleb Williams? Like if you like Michael stated, what if he does go somewhere else and he is it? Then it's like, damn, like you guys really passed up on Mahomes and now Williams. Like, what are you guys thinking? And then there's a lot of people that say that if that happens, Foles deserves to be fired. So it's like, it's a lot. And I do feel for Foles because, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of picks, and I'm not. And again, like we can build around Justin, we can, but again, like Michael said though. I mean, he's been here for a few years now. Has he gotten better? Yes, but no. I mean, he hasn't proven, anything yeah, it's
The thought process to me is like, okay, we're still having questions about this guy 3 years in going into his
yeah,
fourth season. So
exactly.
with those questions, is that kind of the answer? You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking.
Brian Urlacher said that best. If you're Brian Urlacher came out and said that if you're still questioning a guy 3 years in, then he's probably not your guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I read something a little bit ago. I shared it. I actually just shared it in a group where Williams came out and said like he's not here. He doesn't care about the money. I mean, because if you read earlier, I guess he already made 2 million already off
Yeah, and
that
the
deal he has.
NIL deals and stuff
Yeah,
like
so
that,
it's like
right?
I'm like okay, like he said he's not all those things that's being said about him. Those are just he goes that never came out of his mouth.
Now,
He
let
goes
me say this real quick. That narrative of like, oh, well, I'm going to stay in college because the NIL money is better, that's ludicrous because
no, yeah,
a $20
but
million contract first year for a rookie quarterback is definitely,
100%. But I mean,
I'd rather,
like Williams said though, he came out like I've been paying a lot of close attention due to Michael being on my ass a lot about him. So it's like I've been watching him a lot more just to figure out and understand him. And like I said, he came out and he said like it's not about the money. At the end of the day, he wants to be immortal. He wants to be the very best. That it's
yep.
the legends that are. He wants to become a legend. He wants to come out there and be the very best and play his game and win football games and bring a championship to whatever team he selects him. So I respect that. I like that. And then, like I said, it's just, it's hard to see where you're going to go. You're going to go, build around Fields and go out there and get all those picks, or Williams.
So let's shift the focus now to Fields, right? Because we've just been talking about Caleb for a minute. The value, right? We talk about value with that first overall pick, value of Caleb Williams versus value of Justin Fields. Obviously, you're not going to get the same value for Fields as you're going to get for that number one overall pick. And I think that's also telling because if Fields was as good as people, as Bears fans think or hope he is, I think the value would be a little bit higher on what they could get for him, even if they were already planning on selecting a different quarterback. You know what I mean? But the thought process of Caleb Williams being who he's potentially going to be is what's driving the value of that pick up.
100%, and I agree with that because here's the thing. Okay, there's a lot of teams who's been reaching out to the Bears to pose, about Fields, and right now the only team that's maybe considering giving up a first round pick is Atlanta, but that's not 100% guaranteed. Like it's a big if. As of right now, they're saying the highest they'll get for Fields is a second rounder. So I mean, if he really was, something more than that, I believe we would legitimately get top 15, maybe 20 pick for Fields. And
Here's
it's
the
not
other
happening.
thing. Here's the other thing about that trade scenario about getting all that draft capital. You're saying if they trade from 1 to 2 to Washington and then trade again back to Atlanta, you have it's not like all of that is set up on the table for you. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's a chance you trade at number 2 and you're stuck there. And Atlanta might be seeing there's someone else there that they want. Maybe they want to take a guy on like Jaden Daniels at 9 and hope he falls, or try to trade up to 6, to get Jaden Daniels because they're not sold on Drake May that much more than they are Jaden Daniels. So I mean, you're not guaranteed to make that trade to Washington and then again to Atlanta. So I mean, that would have to all play out perfectly for you. And so say with Justin Fields, say he doesn't develop. We keep saying, what if Caleb Williams isn't that guy? Well, what if we're just making a third year in a row of a different excuse for Justin Fields and he doesn't develop? I mean, DJ Moore's biggest plays this year was when Justin Fields just threw him a screen pass and DJ Moore just ran downfield. You didn't really see a whole lot of Justin Fields, making consistent plays downfield to DJ Moore. So, say you do that and you get a guy like Marvin Harrison at 2 if you make that trade. I mean, how valuable are these guys if you still have a quarterback that cannot develop?
Well, right. And if you look at how he went through the reads on offense, it was 2 guys this whole season that really just were his guys, Cole Kmet and DJ Moore. And everybody else was just kind of there. And I think that's a great point that Michael's making is you bring in more weapons, yeah, cool. But if Justin can't get through his reads, then what's the point of having all these weapons?
Mhm.
So
And Michael, said it before. Like he hesitates. There has it. I've been to a few Bears games last season where it's like you have an open wide receiver or even a running back, and it's like he questions himself. He freezes. Like he just doesn't want to do it. He's afraid to run because he doesn't want to get in trouble by the coaches, or he's afraid to throw because he doesn't want to mess up. And then what happens? It's a sack.
yeah.
I mean, right now, like we've given up the most sacks in the league.
So let me ask you guys this real quick. Hypothetically speaking, let's say the Bears select Caleb Williams number 1 overall. Obviously, you're going to trade Justin Fields probably prior to that. Do you think they could get a potential first-round pick if he was to be traded to Atlanta, or do you think they're going to have to settle for a second-round pick?
I think it depends because
Yeah.
it right now it only seems like Atlanta and Pittsburgh are the two teams that are really you're hearing about interested in even
Raiders.
trading for Fields.
Raiders
So I
too.
mean, there's a chance that you might have teams kind of drop out of that. I want Justin Fields, and if teams do drop out, that immediately drops his value. I mean, if you get 2 or 3 teams that want him, you might see a team throw in a late first if it means getting their guy. But if teams fall out of like the whole, we don't want Fields, we're going to take a shot in the draft or free agency or whatever. I mean, the less teams there are, the less value that pick is or Justin Fields is. So I just think it depends on how many teams are fighting to get him and how bad they want him. I think if Atlanta and Pittsburgh, or say if it's even just those 2 teams, and say Pittsburgh offers a second round pick in Deontay Johnson, just for example, I think you can see Atlanta come back and say, we'll throw in a late first and, a fourth or something, I can see a scenario like that, but, if the Bears get too greedy with Fields, they might lose all offers on him. So
I see it for us if we're gonna get Atlanta, we'll use Atlanta. If we get their first round, we're gonna be it's gonna be more than just giving up Fields. We're gonna end up swapping picks or something with them. It's not just to be straight up, their pick for our Fields.
I mean, honestly, Joey, I'm not opposed to like, okay, let's say they want Fields, right? So Atlanta wants him. They'll give you the number 9 overall pick, but they want a 4th-round pick this year as well. So you give Fields and a 4th-round pick for the number 9 overall pick. I would do that deal.
Well, they're also saying, from what I read,
or the number 8 pick, sorry.
But it was the number 8 pick, and they're also talking trading Pitts for Fields, and then the Bears, I think it was 3rd or 4th pick.
Yeah, hold on. I think what'll end up happening is Justin will ultimately be traded. If he's traded, it'll go for a second rounder straight up, Justin, for a second round pick. And
it'll be 2. I think it'll be 2 second round picks.
I don't know. I don't know if you get 2 picks for Justin.
Yeah, I don't.
A second and a 5th.
I think if you get a second round, if you get a first round pick, you bite it and you say, okay, 100%. Thanks, Justin. We'll see you later. But a second round pick, if it's an early second round, it's basically the same as a late first. And you already have your 2 picks this first round. I think, you're sitting in a spot where if Justin is able to net you a early second round from Atlanta, I think you got to take that. You know what I mean? And just kind of ride with that. I do have. Hold on 1 second. Something that I want.
Yeah. So well, first of all, I'm going to address Foster Cover's question. If we get Caleb and St. Neighbors and no second rounder, is this team better than last year? So the thing is if you go Caleb and you get Neighbors, that lets you trade Fields. That Fields, he can get you back into that second round where you can have that second round draft pick. And Ace, I sent you a picture. I don't know if you can put it up.
Yeah, I got it up here. It's right here.
A lot of people ask me, what do I mean by him not going through his progressions or, holding onto the ball too long? This play specifically, you can see he's looking directly at the receiver. There's no one in the back of that end zone. You see the safety on the right hand side addressing that receiver over there. The safety on the other side, he's going to the opposite direction. If he throws that in between the E and the R in the end zone, that's a wide open pitch and catch touchdown. He ended up hesitating on this play, not throwing it, ended up having to escape pressure, and actually ended up being sacked on this play. Now this is just one example, but it's literally consistent plays like this where he's just holding onto the ball too long. He's not trusting what's there. So when I see going through his progressions for I've had a couple people ask me what I mean by that is, not staring down one guy, checking through each receiver, seeing if someone's open. If you see a guy who's open there, trust yourself, have the confidence, just rip it back and throw it. And that's something you see a lot in Caleb Williams. If you have not watched a lot of tape on this guy, the one thing I promise you'll be impressed with is how quickly he can get rid of the football.
I'm not sure if it was Jalen Johnson that spoke on it, because he was on a podcast also where he was talking about Fields, and it might have been him. I'm not sure. It might have been somebody else, but they basically said you can tell when Justin's confidence is high versus when it's low. And the worst part about that is if you can tell, the defense can tell. And if the defense can tell that you're shook or you're rattled, then they're going to have more opportunity to shake and rattle you more. It's like anything in life, man. If you let if one thing bad happens and you let it snowball your entire day, then it's going to derail everything. You're going to constantly think bad things are going to keep happening. But like, if you're able to just shrug it off, and I know they say next play mentality, but that's hard as an athlete. And I feel like there have been times when I watch Fields play where you're like, okay, yeah, look at, he's feeling it. He's slinging the ball. He's hitting this guy there. He's hitting this guy there, breaking this, 25, 30-yard run. That's the confidence that I like to see. But then you can also see when he's just, I wouldn't say scared. I just think he just locks in on like one person when he doesn't feel the confidence of maybe not even himself, but the team, when he thinks, because was it that game where Robert Tonyan dropped the pass that was like wide open?
Yep.
And that seemed to like derail everything. You know what I mean? And Justin gave these guys opportunities. It happened last year also with guys where he'd throw the ball to him and it would hit him in the hands and then they would drop it. As a quarterback, even Aaron Rodgers has come out and said, like, you need to build that trust with your wide receivers. And it's weird because we watched Darnell Mooney and Fields have a good connection last season. And then this past season, Mooney was almost a non-factor in this offense. He had a few catches, but ultimately,
I think Mooney's been a non-factor the last 2 seasons. I think year one for Mooney, I think he like really was like, wow, he can be a wide receiver 1 for us. Last year Mooney had a down year, and everyone used the excuse for Mooney, and that's where everyone kind of said about Fields, well, he doesn't have a number 1. And then people said, well, we thought Mooney was the one, and the defense on Mooney was they don't really have a true number 1. So Mooney's, drawing all the attention and coverage, and that's why you see Mooney having a down year. But now when you got DJ Moore, a lot of Bears fans, I included, had hope that, well, you got DJ Moore, that should take attention away from Mooney. We might see that Mooney of year 1 again, and we just didn't.
Right. And like Foster said, it happened in almost every game.
Yeah.
Where Fields would just miss a wide open guy, or guys would drop the ball. There was
that one play where it's like he had Mooney open, and then he also had I think it was against Detroit. And Detroit ended up beating us. And then he had Herbert open.
Yep, I know exactly what game you're talking about.
And Herbert's like, I mean, all he had to do was just throw the ball out there, and it was a touchdown, and he didn't. He hold it on, and I think he ended up just throwing it away, or something, or it was interception. It was an interception, and it's just like what are you doing? Like you had not one guy, but it's like he didn't even look Herbert's direction, and it's like he was holding the ball too long, just like waiting for DJ Moore or Komet to be open. It's like what are you doing? Like you can't. First of all, Detroit Lions, their defensive line is crazy good, and it's like he just freezes. Like, I don't understand it. It's like right away. It's like I'm trying to look all directions. Like okay, who's open? And if I would have saw Herbert, it's boom. I'm tossing it. Or even like I said with Mooney, like he was open too. But it's just like I don't. It's those little mistakes like that. And again, they're little mistakes. I mean, because
But they add up.
Right.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like where I have gone back in to watch Caleb Williams games, and some of his worst games. Like I think you said about where one of his worst games was against Notre
Probably
Dame
no.
and
Yep.
UCLA. Where
No,
even
so
though
UCLA was a good test for him because Notre Dame had a top defense and Notre Dame kind of really shut down Caleb
yeah
and a
they
lot of
did, but if you notice with Caleb, he right away like he's boom.
yeah
He's looking right away.
yeah.
He tosses that ball if it was incomplete or not. Like you could just tell Caleb Williams was more elite when it comes to that than where Justin Fields is not.
I don't
And
know how.
again, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but if or how old are a lot of our audiences, but if you guys can relate to this is going to be a good one for you. There's so much times we watch Justin Fields and we say, "Man, he's the dude. He's our guy. We don't need Caleb. Take Marvin Harrison. Like this dude's a magician. He's doing things no one else can do." And then he has the games where it's like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like you don't even look like a quarterback. You like, you how are we having this much confidence? You draft Caleb. We're done with this guy." It immediately reminds me of good Rex, bad Rex, and our Super Bowl
Yeah. Good
season.
call. Good call. That's a good call. Where Rex would have games where he would just look insane, and then he'd come back and have a game like he had against the Cardinals, where he's just throwing interceptions, pick sixes, can't hold on to the ball because of his baby hands. Like there was, that's a great comp, but that kind of is the way a lot of the Bears quarterbacks in the past have been. You look at guys like even Cutler was the same way, where he'd have a game where he looked, okay, this is the guy that they traded for, the All Pro, the Pro Bowl guy, and then the next week he's stubborn and throws 3 picks to D'Angelo Hall because he was just trying to prove to everybody that he could beat him one time. You know what I mean? And same with Mitch. Mitch had games where, remember that Tampa Bay game when he threw 6 touchdowns and everybody was, "Oh my God, Mitch Trubisky, this is the greatest quarterback ever. We're going all the way and blah blah blah." And then now look at him. He's on his 4th
Yeah,
team this year.
but the difference is like Rex Grossman and Justin Fields both had they both had a lot more consistency with the good games than Mitch Trubisky did. Jay
Yes.
Cutler, I felt like Jay Cutler, if you don't look at his stats, don't look at his numbers, just as a football fan, have the eye test and watch him play. I think you can use the argument that he was a really, really good quarterback. He made the Pro Bowl for Denver for a reason when he had a
Right.
line, when he had receivers. So like he's a guy where I can say like, and not only that, like Jay Cutler had a difference of offensive coordinator every single year he was with the Bears. The only year he didn't was his last year. His last year was that first time he had the consecutive OCs, which happened to be his best year as a Bear. So, and a lot of people don't understand how important that is. But that's almost like if you're at a job and you're in one department and you get trained on that department and you learn it and you perfect it. And then all of a sudden they say, "Hey, you need to go to that department and we need you to be amazing right now." Like
Right.
learning a new system, a new playbook, like that's not easy to do. So, you know, Jay Cutler, I thought was a really good quarterback that could have been really good on a lot of different teams. I
And
think.
and the reason that I have this
Are you like trying to mock me? I kind of understand.
because I loved Cutler. I loved watching that dude play. I think he got a lot of flack because of his demeanor on the sideline, and I don't think it was warranted. But like you said, the idea of all these different coordinators not having the proper pieces around it, a quarterback, not even just Cutler, but a quarterback in general. Like Patrick Mahomes, obviously, this was probably the worst team he's ever had in terms of offense. And yes, he did win a Super Bowl this year. I understand that. Patrick Mahomes, I can say it now, will go down as the greatest quarterback in NFL history by the end of his career, without a doubt. I mean, he's already got 3 Super Bowls, and the guy, unless he retires early, I can't see that slowing down anytime soon. So you're looking at a situation with the Bears, right, where Justin comes in, he's got this coach. Okay, next season that coach is gone, then the team brings in a different guy, but that team deconstructs the entire roster to basically put you in a position to lose so you can gain as high draft capital as possible. And then, yes, you're in your second year of an offense, but now you're still kind of learning that offense because you have all these new pieces to it. And now what, you're going to bring in a third offensive coordinator and be like, okay, cool, learn this also?
But here's the thing too, like that's 100% true. And that, I mean, me used to playing football and all everything. But another thing too, again, it's like you could tell the coaches weren't really all in with Fields because it's like they weren't. And all the years, the 3 years we've had Fields, what they kept saying, they were changing his game. They were trying to change, his playing style. It wasn't like, okay, like Patrick Mahomes said, like, if you want this kid to succeed, let him play his game. A lot of Vic said the same thing. A lot of players said, if you want to build around him, you gotta let him play his game. They weren't doing that with Justin. They were trying to change his play, until later on. They're like, okay, play your game. And then he was hesitant. He wasn't the same. Yes, he had good games and all that, but he was very hesitant. He was like mentally, like me personally, I think he was always mentally burnt out because he's so overwhelmed and it's like he's felt over pressure. So it's like I would love to keep Fields. I'm a Fields guy, but I honestly do feel like with him having a new start, if it's with Atlanta or Pittsburgh, whatever, I think he will succeed because it's a fresh start, empty. They will play his game.
Yeah, so. I think with Justin, it's if you're the guy at the quarterback position, I don't think it matters as much on letting you play your game or not. You just go out there and play your game. You know what I mean? And while that might not always generate wins, like look at Aaron Rodgers. You think an offensive coordinator was going to tell him, hey, I want to run this offense, and that's the offense we're going to run? No. You got to put your two cents in and be like, no, this is the way this is going to go because this is what I'm good at. And go ahead.
That's exactly what Cutler said. Cutler said, if you look at my stats, I have more interceptions than I have touchdowns, which I don't think that's true. But he's like, I didn't care about throwing interceptions. I'm okay with throwing 6, 7, 8 interceptions per game because if I see something, I'm just gonna toss the rock. I'm gonna do what I can to win.
But a lot of times that led to losses. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's the part right now.
No,
like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't mind throwing 12 interceptions. Yeah, cool. But you don't because you're already losing this fucking game by 50 points.
But what I'm trying to get at was Cutler played his game.
Right.
Cutler's game. That's it. I mean, another thing too with the Bears, it's like the Bears. I wish I could be like a fly on the wall and just see what their mindset, what they talk about. It's like a lot of the quarterbacks, when they drafted Mitch. Look who was his mentor. Really, Sanchez. You had what was that long neck guy?
Mike Glennon.
Mike Glennon,
the long neck. Yeah.
Yeah, you had all these different these quarterbacks. It's like, who are they? Who are you?
Yeah, and then you bring in Justin. Right, you have Andy Dalton on the team.
And you bring Andy Dalton,
and then you draft Justin, and your social media people go out there and put QB1 on Twitter of Andy Dalton, so you're automatically shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, 100%. So
the Bears just don't do shit right, and that's the problem. And now, hopefully, they haven't done shit right. I'm not going to say they aren't doing it right now, but they haven't done it right to this point. But they brought in Ryan Poles, and has Poles made some mistakes? Yes. Every GM makes mistakes in this.
But he also fixed them.
Exactly. He made the Claypool error. Fixed that. He drafted, what the hell is that wide receiver's name? Velus Jones. But then he went and got DJ Moore to correct that. He's made mistakes, yeah. But he's also hit on some really good draft picks in these last 2 drafts. Guys that have become starters on this team, difference makers on this team.
Especially the defense.
Right, especially on the defensive side. And I'm looking at this as, okay, if I'm going to trust this dude the last 2 seasons to do what he did, then we kind of have to be able to trust him and need to trust him this offseason, right? He seemed to, he didn't overpay people. He's working with, Jalen Johnson right now on a contract. Roquan was throwing a baby fit. He got rid of Roquan. I think when you look at polls, you see a guy who he has a vision for what he wants this team to be, and he's putting that plan into motion.
And it
that,
also helps that he used to be a player, so he knows the game. He knows the game from both sides, and the best part that he learned from the best of the best, and that's Andy Reid and the Chiefs organization.
Right.
The thing that I like about polls is, like, if I'm telling you right now, if any of our, like, I would say probably our past 2 GMs at least, if they were our current GM, I would almost guarantee you that Justin Fields would be our quarterback next year. And the reason why I say that is because they all had ego issues.
Yep.
If they draft Caleb Williams, they feel like that's saying, well, then I really missed with a top 15 overall pick in Justin Fields. If I'm not keeping him, then I missed that. And they try to, like, their ego got in their way of, like you guys said, like, making it right. Where Poles is not afraid to say, all right, I missed. How can we make the best of this situation now? And
right,
and not saying he missed on Justin Fields. I don't even think Justin Fields was a miss. I think he could have the potential to live up to that expectation. But when you have a guy like Caleb Williams, who is going to be at the very worst as good as Fields, but possibly your next, like, Herbert, Allen, Mahomes type quarterback, you just got to take it, especially when you have to pay the $25.6 million to pick up the contract for Fields. And he really, I mean, you can make all the excuses in the world for him, but the comparison I like to use is look at Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence year 1 had no receivers and had Urban Meyer as his head coach. So, I mean, and then, like, they even had Tim Tebow coming out trying to, play tight end for them. And yeah, like, Trevor Lawrence's year 1 was a down year, but when people saw how he played, they can tell he was a quarterback that knew how to throw the ball. He knew how to play, that he was going to be okay once they got it right. He still looked better year 1 under that kind of coaching and that kind of playing with no wide receivers whatsoever than Justin Fields did almost in any of the 3 years he's been with the Bears.
And that's the thing is, Justin is probably not a bust, right? He's played well. I think wherever he plays next year or years in the future, I think he's going to be a good starting quarterback. I do too. You talked about it a few weeks ago after the Super Bowl when you said, you want a guy like Patrick Mahomes, and Justin might not be a bad quarterback, but we know that he's not going to get to the level of Patrick Mahomes. And I after you said that, I was like, damn, like that's true as hell, because we've watched Justin for 3 seasons and there's been very little in terms of consistency like Patrick Mahomes has, or in crunch time, Patrick Mahomes makes it happen just like he did in the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, Justin in crunch time hasn't been great. And that's an area that the Bears wanted to see him improve on. And yeah, throw statistics at me. Since the injury last season, he came back and his stats were a lot better. I get it. I don't think this is, if the Bears didn't get this first overall pick, this isn't even a conversation. Justin is back next season. They move forward with whatever draft capital they can get. But you're in a scenario where you have this unique opportunity where you have a guy who's projected to come out as the best draft quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. Some people even put him above Andrew Luck.
I'm glad you said that, because I was reading an article where they actually have projection ratings, and there has not been. So they compared him about saying that no one's even been close to this high since Andrew Luck. And a lot of people think that Andrew Luck was a bust because he didn't play long, but that was due to injuries. If you look at how he played when he played, that dude was everything that people said he was going to be. But if you look at the projection rating points, no one's been this high since Peyton Manning, I think they said. He was even projected higher than Andrew Luck. So I get that, people say every year there's always that one quarterback that, they say is going to be so good. And, look at Bryce Young. And I don't know why people are saying Bryce Young, because unless people read things I obviously missed, but I did not read anything last year where everyone was completely sold that Bryce Young was 100% the best quarterback in that draft. Like, there's people that said they thought he was, but like, he was not projected anywhere close to what Caleb Williams is.
Well, even Fields wasn't projected as the best quarterback in his class. It was Trevor Lawrence.
Right,
and
but
Fields and him were 1A, 1B, and you just got lucky that the
I'm more
Jets
saying
are
like number one. I'm more saying number one overall picks.
Right.
And Bryce Young versus Caleb Williams. It's not even close.
Right. And I mean, now look at it. Bryce Young is the reason. There was a reason for that, right? Because Bryce Young has clearly not lived up to that yet. I know it's still early in his career, but
yeah, and he has zero help there.
yeah, and they got minimal draft compensation or draft capital because of what they traded away to get him. And that's why I don't even. That's a good point too. You look at what Carolina gave up last season to get that first pick. Now they leave their quarterback in a situation where he has nothing in terms of help to build around. And that's why I don't think a team is going to be willing to give up so much for that number one pick. And again, the value comes into play. I think the value for that number one pick is so high that nobody's going to want to try to match it. So you might as well take Caleb Williams and move on from Justin. One thing I do know is listening to Ryan Poles speak, he was asked about Justin was on that podcast with the St. Browns and said something about doesn't want to like live in the gray. He wants to know what's going on. And he basically came out and said, he's been in contact with Justin's camp and they've been talking and, he understands that. And, whatever decision they decide, he wants to, if they're going to trade Justin, he wants to do right by Fields and put him in a situation where he can succeed. And I think that was the most telling thing that he could have said, because I think you listen to him talk about guys like Jalen Johnson about we're getting this done. We're going to get this deal done no matter what it takes. And then he talks that way about your franchise quarterback. It just, the writing seems to me to be on the wall that that's what they're going to end up doing and moving on from Justin.
Yeah, and you have a lot of Bears fans that are just saying, man, I wish Poles would just tell us what he's doing. Like, I don't think he knows. This is a very, very tough decision. I think he is leaning towards drafting Caleb, like we all think, especially for the reasons that you just said. But I mean, especially leading up till now, it's a huge, huge pressure decision. It's franchise changing decision, and people were saying after like 2 days after the Super Bowl, "Oh, I wish Poles would tell us what he's doing." You think he knows that answer right now? There's so much that goes into it, and Joey kind of said it, before the show today that I think he said they're expected to talk with Caleb tomorrow. So I mean, like, you don't even make that decision, cemented in until after you've even talked with Caleb. So, I agree 100% with you that I think you can read between the lines of when Poles talks and kind of like you can kind of tell like where his mindset is, where he's leaning. But just to say that for the Bears fans who think that he knows what he wants to do and is just holding that information from us, I don't think that's the case at all either.
Well, that's why like right now, I have NFL network playing right now, and like right now, they said that the first quarterback the Bears have talked to in person, had a meeting with, and it went well, was Daniels. That tomorrow they are meeting with Caleb, and that they want to meet with Caleb more than once. So like you're 100% right. Like I think Foles is taking his time. He doesn't know what he wants to do, and like you said, he wants to have this cooking. So then when it's all done said and done, everything's going to be in place.
Did you guys see the video that Justin's agent posted on
Of him
Instagram
dancing.
of him dancing around, and then supposedly in the background you hear somebody say, "Are you ready to go home?"
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of like connecting the dots that Justin's from Atlanta and this, or from Georgia, so he's going to go to the Falcons and this and that. Do you really think an agent would put that out there? Like,
I think
if that was the
somebody-
case, you think the agent would throw that on Instagram before it's announced to anybody else? No shot. Now, could it have been a potential situation where Poles reached out to his camp and was like, "Hey, Atlanta really has a lot of interest in trying to get you. So we're going to listen to some offers from them. And if the offer is good enough, we're going to send you to Atlanta." Yeah, that's what I think could happen. I don't think this is a done deal trade where it's like, yeah, Fields is just kind of sitting there waiting for the news to drop that he's going to Atlanta, and I think a lot of Bears fans, myself included at times, I'm not going to say I don't, we read into things a little bit too much. And, like, I think we want the Bears to be good, and they haven't been for so long that any little thing we hold on to as hope that this is going to be the right way. Like, who's that cornerback from Kansas City that is looking for a trade now? Snead. Like, I seen like 6 things come across my feed today about, well, the Bears could be potential trade destination for, like, why? Not every single free agent or every single person looking to get traded needs to go to the Chicago Bears. It doesn't work that way. This isn't Madden.
Where is it?
What? Where's what? You say, or is it? Oh, yeah. I mean,
so where? So let me ask you guys. So say we do trade Fields, like we all think he will end up happening. I think we're all in a kind of agreement, that it's most likely going to either be to Atlanta or Pittsburgh. So everyone says Atlanta, like, it just has a story on the wall, right? Like, from Atlanta going home, just it makes sense. I get it. But let me just make you an argument for the Steelers real quick, why I think that could actually be a perfect fit. So you have a running back combination and Warren and Najee Harris on that team. They're already running the ball super well. You have Deontay Johnson, who's a great route runner. You have, Pickens there, who is looking really good. But not only that, you have Freiermuth. Freiermuth is almost the same type of style tight end as Cole Kmet. So you already know how much value you can get out of Freiermuth there. And then, so when you have that kind of running game mixed in with Justin Fields' running game, the RPOs and the option plays that are going to be available to that team if they do it is crazy. And then you add in the fact that he's going to be coached by Mike Tomlin.
I was just going to say that.
Who gets and demands the most out of every single player on his team. So if they go in for Justin Fields, that's Tomlin's main focus is going to be coaching that dude up. So
right, Tomlin's never had a losing record. So automatically, if Fields goes to the Steelers, you have to assume. Look at the quarterback play they've had over the last couple seasons. Justin is clearly head and shoulders better than Mitch or Pickett or noodle arm Ben Roethlisberger that they had towards the end. And Tomlin still found a way to build a team to win because they haven't had a losing record. So you bring Justin in, and your quarterback situation automatically jumps better. Like you said, the weapons that they have with that defense playing as it always does, it plays well. Mike Tomlin, a guy who's, it's no secret that he loves Justin and loves the way that he is as a person. I think that's a good match for them. Now, before the show, remember how I was like, what if the Bears kind of play us all, right? And they end up trading the first overall pick. They don't take Caleb. They end up taking a different quarterback, but still getting some draft capital back. Do you guys see a scenario where the Bears don't take Caleb, but they still move on from Justin?
I've said from day one, I'm not saying I've said from day one, I think the quarterback of the Bears next year, it's Caleb Williams or it's Justin Fields. I personally don't think there's an in between. I think the only reason why you have the argument to move on from Fields is because you have a guy like Caleb Williams sitting in your back pocket that you can take. Um, I don't feel as strongly about that as I did in the beginning, and the only reason why I say that is now I'm at the point where I'm worried about all of this back and forth and all of this talk, and hearing, if we can hear in Foles' language that he's leaning towards Caleb, Justin Fields can hear that too. So
Right.
if you stick with Justin Fields at this point, the lack of confidence he already had, I'm even more worried about that now. So um the
I mean,
more this
I
drags
like it.
on,
That's a good point. That's a good
the,
point.
the more this drags on, the worse I think it's going to be a fit with Justin Fields in Chicago. But my initial statement I've said from day one is I think the quarterback will either be Fields or it'll be Caleb. But now I just feel like we've always talked about lacking confidence in Justin Fields, and I think that's just getting worse and worse as we speak. So if he is our quarterback next year, now I think he's going to be playing with even less confidence than we've seen.
Yeah, and how do you go back to him after all of this?
Yeah.
Like you want to talk about how we like Justin, but this guy in the draft is intriguing also. That's like dating someone, right? Having somebody you're dating and then being like, oh, that girl over there at the other end of the bar, she's looking pretty good too. Let me go talk to her just to kind of feel it out. Maybe that's a better match for me and her than my current situation. You know what I mean? And how do you go back? But you tell the current situation that. You say, hey, listen, I'm going to go talk to her just to kind of feel it out to see if I want to go with that route instead of you. But I'll be back to let you know how it goes.
It's so funny that you say that because I used almost the same analogy. I told a buddy, I told my buddy earlier today that would be like if they were at a bar and a guy just met a girl at a bar and was talking to her and they were hitting it off and they were like exchanging numbers, and all of a sudden, like, say the buddy comes back, to him and goes, "Hey, that girl down there is kind of interested in you," and he goes, "Oh, she is," and he goes, and then the current girl is kind of saying, "Well, I thought we had something." Well, we did until I knew she was available. Now I don't
Right.
know so much. So,
Right.
so I use almost the same analogy. So
I'm sorry. I can't stop laughing. It's like I have done that twice.
I mean, but it's true, right?
it's so funny.
Like, how do you go back and be like, hey, babe, yeah, that girl was cool. She had a little bit of an attitude, not as much as you do. So how about we just kind of pick off where we left off? You know what I mean? And like, I don't think there is any way they go with Justin next season. I think the writing has been on the wall.
Yeah.
As much if you watch the last 3 months of this show, 3 months, I've talked about how Justin should stay, get all the draft compensation, do all this to build around him. I think the writing was on the wall when they kept Matt Eberflus that Justin Fields was gone because you moved on from Luke Getsy. If you're going to talk consistency, why would you move on from the offensive coordinator and have your quarterback in a third offensive coordinator in 4 seasons, right? Now, Caleb comes in, new OC. He learns that system with that OC. If it doesn't go well, I don't think Eberflus is gone. I think Eberflus probably got an extension that you haven't heard about, and I think he's going to be tied with Caleb. If Caleb doesn't work in the next 3-4 years, then Flus is out. But
if Caleb doesn't work in the next 3 or 4 years, I'm done.
Yeah, then you just can't get lucky with anything. You know what I mean? At this point, it's like I don't even. And Justin goes on and becomes a fucking world beater on some other team. Then it is just the Bears, right? Then that's all it is at that point. Then I'm like, all right, well, I just expect to suck every year, so at least I know where I stand now.
Yeah. And I think with kind of what you said is perfect. Is if you do have a struggling quarterback that comes in, and you do get Caleb, and he does struggle, and then Fields does go out and ball out. Now you're just questioning yourself as a franchise, a lot. So, I think that's a really good point. And the thing
It's
is, to me though, is if you pass on Caleb Williams and he goes out and he plays top 5, top 10 quarterback caliber type in the NFL, people are going to be like, and the fact that the Bears had him in their pocket and they didn't take him, like, you're going to be like questioned so much. But if you take Caleb and he doesn't live up to expectations, there's not a whole lot of people that are going to fault you for it. You still made the right pick. You still made the right call. So,
and I think you extend your longevity in your career as a general manager,
yeah,
right?
and say that you get these draft picks. People keep saying, "Well, what if Caleb Williams doesn't pan out? What if those draft picks don't pan out?"
Right.
So, I mean, just because you're getting those draft picks doesn't mean that they're going to be any more value than Caleb Williams is. So, I will throw this idea at you. It's the only one that I've kind of had in the back of my head from the start. I watch a lot of college football.
Mm-hmm.
I love Drake May. He was probably one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in college. I would turn on every single game just to watch him play. Like, the dude is I just think is really good. Um, so the only thing that I also could have saw is if you traded to Washington and try to get all that draft capital and then take Drake May at 2, assuming that Caleb is gone, because I'm not saying I necessarily think that Drake May is going to be as good as Caleb, but it would not shock me if he was. So, kind of, I don't know if either one of you have seen a lot on Drake May, but what are your thoughts on that?
So, they talked a lot about how, it's all been focused on Caleb Williams all season from every single person you hear in football. But I had my buddy Mike Hughes on a couple weeks ago, sat in with me, and he was talking about Daniels. You know what I mean? Like, there's different quarterbacks in this draft that all present different skill sets. I think that a lot of teams could find intriguing based on your offensive situation. And I think, listen, I'm kind of I have a little PTSD from North Carolina quarterbacks.
Yeah, I know.
With Mitch, I don't I just don't know if I would like that idea. I like your dream that you had. If you want to tell everybody your dream, and that would be a pretty sweet dream, I think, if it ended up coming true.
Yeah, I had I can't, very vague on the cap. I just remember it was like 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, but we essentially we got a lot of draft capital to fall back one spot to number 2. And I guess Washington was super high on Drake May, was worried about the Bears taking him. So they took May, so we got all that, and then we still got Caleb at 2. There's a reason why that was a dream. That's not going to happen. But like I also told you pre-show, Washington wouldn't make that trade because they know Drake May will be there at 2. But the Bears made that trade. They traded a crap load to move up one spot to take Mitch, which they should have known that he was going to be there. So I know there's all this story about the 49ers convinced the Bears that they were taking Mitch. Like, come on, guys. Like, we don't really believe that, do we? Like, there's no one that's like that dumb when it comes to like people in that high up in general manager in the NFL. Like, they're not going to get tricked. Like, oh yeah, you're telling me exactly who you're drafting. You must be drafting them then. Like, why do you think they're telling you that unless there is an actual game plan involved? Like, you should make us this trade because we're going to draft him if you don't. Like, no, you're not. It's like, how do you like? There's no way you should not know that that's just a pawn in their puzzle that they're just trying to, piece together. So it's kind of like you should have known as the Bears that Mitch was going to be there at 3, and you still gave up all that to trade up one spot. So,
and that's why Ryan Pace is in Atlanta, where he drafted Justin. Justin's going to end up going to Atlanta. It all makes sense.
yeah.
You know what I'm kind of sad about is that we haven't done any bare bones because the Bears haven't been playing. I I missed the video. I missed the talk. That's just something that bothers me. We do have some news though for Friday night. And Michael, I don't know if you want to kind of do the explaining on how this all worked in our favor, or if you just want to explain who the guest is going to be with you and me on Friday night.
Yeah. So, I have some of the connections. I play in a couple high competitive, Madden leagues, and a couple of them I'm in. I play with a couple NFL players. Some of them not big, maybe like practice squad. Some are second string, some starters. But there's one league I'm currently in. Paris Campbell. Most people know him wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. Currently, wide receiver for the New York Giants. I actually just had a game head to head with him the other night, and him and I played, and him and I talked afterwards, and I just thought perfect timing. Going into free agency, heading into the draft, heading into all this, like, kind of would be really cool to get a NFL player's perspective on what goes through your mindset during all of that. So I asked him if he'd be willing to hop on board and come on to our show, and he agreed. So you can expect to see Paris Campbell live with us Friday night, 8 Central.
Yeah, and it's always I've I don't like to brag about my conquests on interviews, but I've interviewed some, I'm not gonna say high profile. I had Jim McMahon, Devin Hester, Sarah Spain was one of my favorites. I love Sarah. She was
I love
great.
Sarah Spain.
Yeah, me too. As a Chicago sports fan, I feel like you just love Sarah Spain. I've interviewed a few people, but I don't know if I've ever interviewed an active NFL player. So this will be kind of cool. And I like the idea that we're going to be able to talk to him about, like you said, the combine will be wrapping up. So we could talk to him about, how that process goes, free agency, trade talks and stuff like that. He's a former Buckeye. You and I talked about that earlier. He just missed Justin, but as a Buckeye, I'm assuming he probably watched a lot of Justin in college. So I'd like to get his thoughts on Justin, see if he's paying attention to the situation this offseason with the Bears. And I think it'll be a real fun interview. 30 minutes is all we're shooting for. If you guys have questions, definitely shoot us a message. I posted something in our Facebook group on the Undefeated Sports Network on Facebook. Under that post of him joining us, if you have questions, just put them on there. I'll make sure to get them on, as many as I don't want to say all of them, but as many as I can. I'm going to try to get on to the show. And I do have another newsworthy thing, I guess, for Undefeated Sports Network. So my show officially, is back. I had sports for a long time. It was good to see it was my baby. It got me to learn the ropes of this whole podcast game, and got me into some pretty sweet and unique opportunities that I never would have had otherwise. But the name, the concept, it all just seems so generic. So now Ace is bringing you his show. Ace's Wild Chicago Sports takes starts March 6th, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And
You're going in and out.
am I? Okay.
Yeah.
March
Nice.
6th,
Perfect.
8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Ace's Wild Chicago Sports Takes, first episode. I'm really excited for this. I'm going to try to have a few guests on. And you know what? I like this comment by Foster. Grade polls his drafts. I think that's going to be a good topic for this show. I think we will grade polls his drafts, and we'll kind of gauge our level of confidence in Ryan Poles and what we think, how he's done in these drafts. And I'm really excited. Tarbill will hopefully have his situation fixed so that he can jump on and continue to do the thing with me. but yeah, there's so much stuff going on right now with this network, and I love it. Bringing in new people, new shows. We have the wrestling show that a lot of people have actually really raved about, which is cool.
And with that being said, me personally, I will be at WrestleMania,
Yep.
and I will be going live for all you guys, showing you the ins and out, the arena. Hopefully, if I can, show you the museum that they got going on, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we're gonna have like Joey like live in the field. It's gonna be kind of cool. We'll do a WrestleMania preview kickoff show. I'll see. Maybe we'll even go live to you, Joey, while you're out just wandering with some fans and get some thoughts on that. I'm a wrestling fan and I nerd out hard at WrestleMania season. Um, and
I got a lot of people, a lot of good friends who I built. I can call brothers now, just to wrestling. Shout out to Tim with Two Extreme belts. He customized them, or Richard Simpson who restored all the belts. They're gonna have a lot of work there to show off titles. A lot of really big wrestling people there who I'm gonna meet with and show off and to talk with. So I'm excited. It's gonna be a good show. I mean, 2 day show. Gates open at 3. So my plan is, hopefully go live with you guys at least an hour before, and then, probably continue that while I'm there.
yeah, I mean, as a wrestling fan, I'm. It's kind of like the draft situation that we talked about. We're gonna have a nice draft show live during the NFL draft. We're all going to be on here. We talked with Foster and the guys from his network, and I've reached out to a few guys on the other ones. We're going to kind of do like a Chicago draft party roulette where a couple of guys from this show jump on our show, we jump on this show, and then to that show, and we all just kind of give our take on the way that the draft is unfolded. Obviously, the Bears are most likely going to stick with that first overall pick or be picking very high in the draft. So we'll have a lot of topics to talk about right off the draft. It'll be fun. We have a whole bunch of shows, man. We got Winter Circle. We have the Into the Russellverse, Turtles Take, Out of High Bear Nation, Aces Wild Chicago Sports Takes. There's so much shit going on. I don't even know how I have enough time to do all this, but we get it done because that's what we do. And as always, before we leave,
Packers suck.
the Packers suck. And thank you guys for tuning in. It was a hell of a show. I love talking Bears. I could talk Bears for 6 more hours if I needed to. Joey, Michael, I appreciate you guys sitting in with me. The comments in the chat were awesome. I have a particular one that seemed to be one of my favorite. This one about the hosts being awesome. I am clearly the host with the most. And
Are you sure?
I mean, it doesn't. We discussed this. Ace is always the top dog. Ace is high all the time. But anyways, thank you guys for joining. We will be back Friday with Paris Campbell, and then Winter Circle Sunday, and then Turtles Take.
Winter Circle's on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays. That's right. Tuesdays. The
Right,
wrestling
the
show
wrestling
is Sundays.
Sunday.
And then there's a lot. Just be
stay
tuned.
You see what I said, Michael? I'm sorry, man. I'm gonna learn soon. I got you.
Stay tuned, and there's just a lot of shit. I got too much shit. I got too much going on. But stay tuned, and we'll be back Friday and then next week as well. Thanks, guys, for joining us.